There we go.
So with the increasing technology, social media is becoming an increasingly ever-present in our daily lives. Allen claimed that current trends in technology and social media have a negative impact on societal mental health. To support this claim, he had 2 points. First, that social media connects users but reduces human interaction. And second, that social media is more likely to negatively affect mental health. However, he never defined what social media actually is. He implied that it was sites like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and maybe even MySpace. I would like to define social media a little more broadly to include any online application where users share and consume information and engage with each other. So that could include email and even texting. So I will be responding to his claims by showing that social media connects users through an alternative form of interaction. And second, that the chain of evidence provided does not lead to the conclusion that social media negatively affects mental health. And finally, that social media often has a positive effect on societal health. My first point, that social media connects users through an alternative form of interaction. The advocate provided no evidence that social media results in less time spent on activities that would be better for your health. He established that there are indeed, that 90% of college students are on social media, and that on average, people who are on social media spend 2 hours per day there. And that was according to Bailey Parnell. But he never explained how this shows that people spend less time doing things that would help their mental health. And he also lacked to show that there was a change over time, that as health, or as social media increases, that health goes down. In fact, his own source suggested that the relationship might not be in this direction. This same source, Bailey Parnell, said that social media is neither good nor bad. It's just the most recent tool we're using to do what we've always done: tell stories and communicate with each other. So the advocate failed to report his whole source's information. He only pulled out the information that showed a possible negative impact. The same source continued to say that when we talk about the dark side of social media, we're really talking about the dark side of people. And this is something that has never changed, and something that suggests that social media is not negatively affecting our health. It's just a way of talking about it in a different way. My second claim is that the chain of evidence that he provided does not lead to the conclusion. So Allen claimed that social media releases dopamine, which leads to addiction like a drug, but he never provided a citation for this evidence. And although undoubtedly social media does cause a release of dopamine, which we can tell because we have a positive reaction when we look at funny videos, we laugh and we smile and we generally feel good, but dopamine does not necessarily always cause addiction. In fact, according to a study published in the Biochemical and Biophysical Research Communication Journal, having the proper level of dopamine is essential for mental health. So as long as we monitor our time on social media, it can also be very beneficial for mental health. Allen also claimed that the fear of missing out is caused by social media, but there was no evidence that that it was caused by social media, just that people express their fear of missing out through social media. His source said that the moment that people are alone, for a few seconds, they become anxious, they panic, they fidget, they reach for a device. So I'm suggesting that people may always have had this fear, and now it's just being expressed through social media. Finally, social media can often have a positive effect on mental health. According to the Journal of Computers and Human Behavior, greater frequency, intensity, and longevity of social media in people with serious mental illnesses and greater and high was associated with higher levels of community participation, and greater intensity of social media use was positively associated with civic engagement. For instance, those who use social media 30 minutes a day had 16.4 more days of participation, and the voting rate was 17.4% higher. So this shows that social media does not negatively affect mental health. Thank you.
All right, well, you set up the structure of the advocate's claims pretty clearly, and then you kind of give a broader definition of what social media constitutes. I assume that that's going to be used to justify some of the positives that you're talking about that come from email and texting, which is fine, and you went to all the effort to do that, but we didn't really get much follow-up on that later on, so I'm not exactly sure why you spent the time and energy on that if you weren't going to have a specific argument tailored to that particular point. There's a preview of what the supporting structure of your own arguments is going to be, so it's a little bit different than the advocate's claims, although there is some application that you go to right away. On the first point, you point out that there's a lack of evidence to show that people are less involved in more healthy activities or other kinds of things, and I thought that that was pretty interesting. When you were talking about there not being any data over time to support this conclusion, I wasn't sure if you were talking about how people have changed when they access social media, or if you were talking about there's no data since social media has been developed to show a decline in these sorts of things. One, they mean kind of different things, and so it should be a little bit clearer what it is you're looking for. The quote that talks about, that comes from the advocate's own source that says that, social media is really just reflective of the people that are using it. I think that you're going for a good cause-effect argument here that in essence, it's not the social media that produces these problems. It is merely allowing us to see what it existed in the first place. Although allowing us to see those things may in fact be problematic, I'm not exactly sure that the opponent would disagree with what your premise is. Instead, they might say, and that's the problem, is that the social media allows the evil in people out, so to speak. The argument on the second point suggesting that the line of reasoning that's being presented here isn't valid, you've got a pretty good explanation about the whole thing with dopamine. I think that that's okay. I think there are some presses that you could make about the advocate's reasoning that would be a little bit more specific. I appreciated the effort to show that dopamine is necessary in order for people to have mental health. The question is, are they getting kind of OD'd on the dopamine from the access to social media? And I don't know that your answer is particularly strong on that point. The notion of missing out is attacked. and the suggestion that maybe people have just always been this way and now we're just aware of it with social media. That's similar to what the argument was above about the dark side of social media. And I think that that's a consistent way of making that argument. The third point is really just a series of positive outcomes from the use of social media. There's a little bit of connection to the advocate's point, but I think that your long-term argument here is that there are benefits that counterbalance any of the negative sorts of things, and some of your benefits are measurable, which is nice. All right, thank you.